I was sitting on the sofa in the living room, flipping through a magazine, when my phone buzzed with a new message. Opening it, I saw 3 photos. The first was of Ashley in my silk robe. She had taken the selfie lying in my bed. In the second, she was wrapped in an embrace with David. Their faces were touching, and David was even smiling at the camera. The third was the most audacious. She had secretly taken a photo of a sleeping David in profile. The bed linens were the same exclusive Italian silk sheets my mother-in-law had given us for our wedding. I stared at the photos for about 10 seconds, then closed the magazine, stood up, went into my study, and picked up my burner phone. Was I angry? Of course I was angry. But in her 28 years, Catherine Hayes had learned one thing above all else: never make decisions based on emotion. What was the point of crying and wailing? What was the point of rushing over there and causing a scene with David? If he had the nerve to cheat, he wouldn't admit it anyway. And Ashley had dared to send the photos precisely because she was counting on my hysteria. If I made a scene, I would lose. I would only win if I kept my cool. Using the second phone, I took screenshots of the entire conversation from beginning to end, including those 3 photos, including her message. "Hey sis, he says you're just a log in bed," including the timestamp and her account details. Then I synced these screenshots to my cloud storage and saved a copy on a flash drive. Finished with that, I called Jack. Jack was a private investigator who had previously helped me gather information on business competitors. He worked cleanly and knew how to keep his mouth shut. He answered after the second ring. "Jack, I need you to run a check on someone," I said. "I'm listening, Catherine. The girl's name is Ashley. She's in her mid-20s. Most likely works for some company. That's all I know for now, but I have her picture. I'll send it now. I need an answer by dawn." I sent him the picture of Ashley. The photo was clear. Her facial features, figure, and style of dress were all plain as day. Jack replied with a single word: "Received." And he hung up. I returned to the bedroom. David wasn't home tonight. In the morning, he had said he had an important business dinner and would be late. Now it was clear what kind of dinner it was. He was having dinner right in Ashley's bed. I opened the closet. The silk robe was indeed gone. I had bought it last month at a private showing by a famous American designer in New York. A limited collection. Only 50 pieces were made. At the time, David had chided me for being a spendthrift, as the robe had cost over $15,000, and now it was on Ashley's shoulders. I closed the closet door. No matter. It's just a robe. I'll consider it a shroud that I gifted her. At 11 p.m., Jack called. "Catherine, I found everything. The girl's name is Ashley, 26 years old, a junior employee in the public relations department of Grayson Corp. She's been working there for a year and 3 months. Graduated from a non-prestigious, for-profit university. An ordinary family, her parents run a stall at a farmer's market in a small Midwestern town. She's currently renting a studio apartment on the east side of Manhattan for $4,000 a month. As for connections, she's close with a few colleagues at work, but no influential patrons have been noted. The public relations department of Grayson Corp." Hearing this, I almost laughed. "Oh, David, what taste you have. They say you don't shit where you eat, and you brought this girl right into your own company. This department is the one that communicates with the press daily. If rumors start spreading from there, Grayson Corp's stock will plummet. There's something else, Catherine," Jack added. "What is it?" "This Ashley has a nickname at the company. Her colleagues call her Saint Ashley behind her back. They say it's because she acts all pure and innocent at the office, speaking in a thin little voice. But when it comes to taking credit for others' work or shifting blame, she has no equal. Her direct supervisor is a woman named Helen, and their relationship is tense. Rumor has it that it's because Ashley once went over Helen's head and reported directly to the CEO. To the CEO, David? Yes. About 3 months ago, Ashley bypassed her department head and went straight to David Grayson. Afterward, Helen threw a huge fit in the office, but the matter was hushed up because David Grayson personally signed off on Ashley's transfer to a full-time position 3 months ago. So, David and Ashley have been sleeping together for at least 3 months. I leaned back on the sofa, lightly tapping my fingers on the armrest. 3 months. 100 days. While I was busy securing an international merger deal for Grayson Corp, he was fooling around with a girl from the PR department. "Jack, keep an eye on her. I need to know everything about her, her social media, who she talks to, where she goes. The more detailed, the better." "Understood." After hanging up, I walked over to the enormous window. The city outside glittered with lights. The Grayson Corp Tower was just a couple of miles away, and a light was still on the top floor. Some poor employee was probably working late, building David Grayson's empire. And now, the mistress of this empire was being openly provoked by some cheap affair. I picked up my phone, opened the 3 photos, and looked at them again. The girl was indeed pretty. A perfect oval face, large eyes, fair skin, dimples on her cheeks when she smiled. But the triumph in her eyes was too blatant. She looked like a child who had stolen someone else's toy and couldn't resist showing it off. Stupid. Incredibly stupid. In high society, I had seen all kinds of mistresses. The smart ones stayed quiet, knew their place, and understood who they could mess with and who they couldn't. Ones like this Ashley, who deliberately courted disaster, were a rarity. Apparently, she decided that since David was spoiling her, she had the right to challenge me. Apparently, she decided that a couple of photos would make me lose my composure, and I would run to file for divorce with screams and tears, and she would take my place. Apparently, she decided that Catherine was just a stupid doll who had married well thanks to the Hayes family's connections. But she didn't know one thing. Last year, the plan for that very merger that shook the entire market was written by me. The year before, the PR crisis that nearly destroyed Grayson Corp was handled by me. When that idiot David was attacked by old shareholders at a board of directors meeting, it was I who sat next to him and whispered every word into his ear. Without Catherine Hayes, David Grayson would be nothing. The phone screen went dark, reflecting my face. I was smiling, a genuine smile, because a brilliant idea had just come to me. So, Ashley works in the public relations department. So, she cares most about her professional image. So, she dreams of transforming from a junior employee into the CEO's wife. Excellent. I will make her famous throughout the entire company. I opened the contacts on my phone and found the number for the department head, Helen, which I had saved for work-related matters. Then I found the numbers for the director of human resources, the head of the administrative department, and several of the CEO's deputies. Then I logged into Grayson Corp's corporate messaging network. As the CEO's wife, I had full access to the organizational structure and employee directory. I wrote down the email addresses and work profiles of the entire public relations department, from Helen down to every junior specialist. I added her direct supervisors, colleagues from related departments, and even the interns. A total of 127 contacts. Tomorrow morning, upon opening their work email, these 127 people would receive a special gift. I placed the 3 photos in a folder, added the screenshots of the conversation, and wrote a short text. An employee in your company's public relations department, Ashley, sent me the attached photos yesterday at 8:12 p.m., accompanying them with the message, "Hey sis, he says you're just a log in bed." As the legal spouse of Grayson Corp's CEO, David Grayson, I believe this employee's actions are a gross violation of professional ethics. I am bringing this fact to the attention of the Human Resources Department and the company's management. I trust that appropriate and strict measures will be taken. Sincerely, Catherine Hayes. I set up a delayed send. Recipients: 127 employees of Grayson Corp. Copies to the official complaints inbox, the HR department's inbox, and the email of the Board of Directors Secretariat. Send time, tomorrow at exactly 9 a.m. At that time, everyone arrives at the office, turns on their computers, and starts their workday. Finished, I put the phone aside and went to take a shower. The water was the perfect temperature. I slowly washed my hair, slowly applied shower gel, and even put on a face mask. The mirror reflected my face. For 28, my skin was in excellent condition. My features were refined, the kind that only get more beautiful with age. When I married David, everyone said it was the perfect dynastic marriage, a union of beauty and talent. Now I think, what talent? Just lucky to be born into the right family. I came out of the bathroom with the mask on my face, picked up my phone, and saw 2 more messages from Ashley. "Hey sis, why aren't you answering? Upset? David is staying with me tonight. He says the thought of your eternally cold face makes him sick." I put down the mobile, picked up the landline phone by the bed, and dialed David's number. He answered after the first ring. "Catherine." David's voice was muffled. The background was completely silent, definitely not the noise of a restaurant. "Darling," I said in my most tender voice. "Are you coming home tonight?" There was a pause on the other end. "Not tonight. Still with clients. I might have to stay until morning." "Oh, take care of yourself. Don't drink too much." "Okay, you go to sleep. Good night." I hung up, and the smile gradually faded from my face. Clients. Since when was Ashley called a client? But no matter. You enjoy spending time with her so much, David. Go right ahead. Let's see if you can still smile tomorrow. I turned off my mobile phone, turned off my tablet, pulled the cord from the landline, got into bed, pulled up the covers, and closed my eyes. That night, I slept surprisingly soundly, and in 9 hours, the world outside was about to turn upside down. The next morning, at 7 a.m., a call woke me up. Not my phone's alarm, but a wake-up call from the hotel phone. Yes, I hadn't slept at home that night. After turning off my phone, I had immediately driven to the historic Plaza Hotel on Fifth Avenue and booked the presidential suite on the top floor. In 3 years of marriage, I had spent less than 2 years in total at the Grayson estate. The rest of the time, I almost always lived here. David didn't even suspect, because he couldn't care less whether I spent the night at home or not. I washed my face and ordered breakfast to the room. The waiter who rolled in the cart also handed me an envelope. Miss Hayes, this was left for you at the registration desk last night. There was no sender's name on the envelope, but I knew who it was from. Opening it, I found a stack of photos and a folder of documents inside. Jack never disappointed. The photographs captured Ashley's daily life. A profile shot at the office, a close-up of her face in a shopping mall, laughing with friends at a restaurant. There were also a few shots of her and David entering the lobby of a luxury residential complex. I knew that building. It was a project Grayson Corp had completed last year, but hadn't yet put on the market. David had kept a duplex penthouse for himself, supposedly for entertaining important guests. Now it was clear what kind of guests he was entertaining there. I ate breakfast and flipped through the photos, and it was getting funnier and funnier. This girl had 2 completely different faces. At the office, she wore severe suits, her hair slicked back. She walked with her head down, feigning modesty. But the moment she stepped out of the company doors, she would put on a tight dress, stilettos, and walk with a confident stride, her gaze becoming defiant. The funniest photo was one taken in an elevator. Ashley had crammed herself into a corner and was taking a selfie with pursed lips, pouting as if she had just stepped out of a popular influencer's video. And on her phone case was the inscription, "I just want to be your princess." I almost choked on my coffee, at 26, and still a princess. What did David see in her? He must like her stupidity. Putting the photos aside, I picked up the documents. It was a detailed report on Ashley. Jack had dug up her entire life story from birth to the present day. Ashley's real name was Jenny Miller. She was born in a small town in Ohio. Her father, John, ran a produce stand at the local farmer's market. Her mother, Mary, sold fruit at the next stall over. There was also a younger brother, Pat, 3 years her junior, a local delinquent who had dropped out of high school in the 8th grade and lived off the money his sister sent him. At 18, Jenny enrolled in a non-prestigious for-profit university. The money for her tuition was collected from all their relatives. In her sophomore year, she changed her name to Ashley, declaring that the name Jenny sounded too rustic and was holding back her career in the city. After changing her name, it was as if she had changed her whole self, starting to wear makeup, dress fashionably, and copy the speech of New Yorkers. After graduating, she sat at home for 6 months and then somehow got a job as a secretary in a small firm in New York. She quit after less than a year. Then she changed companies a few more times, never staying anywhere for long. And a year and 3 months ago, she had miraculously passed an interview at Grayson Corp and landed in the public relations department. Here, I paused. I knew the requirements for candidates at Grayson Corp perfectly well. For junior positions, they hired, at a minimum, graduates from the nation's leading universities. For this department, they only hired people with diplomas from Ivy League schools, or with at least 3 years of experience. How could a girl from a for-profit university with a questionable resume get into Grayson Corp? The answer was found quickly. Attached to the report was a copy of the interview evaluation sheet. All 5 interviewers had given her low scores. The overall conclusion stated, education does not meet requirements. Insufficient work experience. Not recommended for hire. But at the very bottom of the page was a line handwritten, hire, David Grayson. Oh, David, David. I took a deep breath and continued reading. The way Ashley worked after being hired could be described in one word, catastrophe. She couldn't write official press releases, couldn't build rapport with journalists, and barely knew how to use basic office software. The department head, Helen, had complained to management multiple times and demanded her dismissal. But each time, the matter was swept under the rug. The reason was simple: David forbade it. 3 months ago, the company faced a crisis due to customer complaints about product quality. Helen and her team worked overtime to quell the scandal, while Ashley simply went around her boss, straight to David's office. After that, David not only didn't reprimand her for insubordination, but also called Helen in and berated her for not being tolerant enough of her subordinates. From then on, Ashley became untouchable in the department. Her colleagues nicknamed her Saint Ashley behind her back. She always played the victim, but she was the quickest to stab you in the back. Someone had seen her leaving expensive restaurants with David. Someone noticed she had handbags that clearly didn't match her salary. Someone saw her getting into a black executive Escalade after work. Everyone at the company knew David's personal car, but everyone preferred to stay silent because they understood. Crossing Ashley meant crossing David Grayson. I closed the folder and leaned back in my chair. The morning sun flooded the room through the huge windows. I drank my coffee and watched the stream of cars below, my brain working at full speed. Ashley was not a smart opponent. She was too arrogant, too eager to boast about landing on a high branch. In high society, a character like that wouldn't survive 3 days. But inside the company, under David's protection, she felt superior. The only question was how long David could protect her, and whether he would care about her when he had to save his own skin. I set down my cup and picked up my phone, even though it was off. On the hotel's landline, the indicator for dozens of missed calls from the same number was blinking. David, he must have found out everything by now. It wasn't hard to imagine what had happened at the company after my email went out at 9 a.m. First, the department head, Helen, received it. Then the director of HR, the heads of administration, deputy directors, and all 100, plus employees of the department. An official email from the legal wife of the CEO, Catherine Hayes, with photos of the mistress in the wife's robe on the CEO's bed and the line about being a log. This email was now spreading through the internal network like a virus. In half an hour, all 1,000+ employees of the company would know. In an hour, the rumors would reach partners, suppliers, competitors, and the entire business community. Ashley wanted fame. I gave it to her. David wanted to play with fire. Now let him burn. I picked up Jack's report again and opened the last page. There was a list of Ashley's social media accounts. Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, everything you could imagine was there, and almost all of her content consisted of showing off. Expensive bags, chic restaurants, 5-star hotels, luxury car showrooms, and under each photo, saccharine captions like, "It's so nice to be loved," and, "With the right person, every day is a celebration." The comments were full of envy. Someone asked if she had found a rich benefactor. She never answered directly, just posted coy emojis or wrote, "Guess." You won't have to guess for much longer. I gathered the documents, went to the walk-in closet, and changed. A black pencil skirt, a beige silk blouse, beige Louboutin pumps. My hair was pulled back, pearl studs in my ears. The woman in the mirror was elegant, composed, expressing no emotion. Then I turned on my phone. Over 900 unread messages, more than 300 missed calls. My inbox was overflowing. David had called 47 times, my mother-in-law Eleanor 15 times, over 200 calls from the Grayson Corp office. There were unknown numbers and calls from Ashley herself. I ignored them all and opened the corporate messaging app. As I expected, the company was in an uproar. In the department's work chat, the number of messages had exceeded several thousand. Someone had screenshotted the email and was asking, "Is this real?" Someone wrote, "She always pissed me off. I knew she was rotten." Someone sent laughing emojis. Someone tagged Helen and asked, "What are we going to do?" Helen replied with a single phrase, "The information is being verified. Employees are forbidden to disseminate this data outside the company," but it was obvious that it was impossible to contain it. I opened the internet and saw that the gossip had already spilled out. Someone identifying themselves as a Grayson Corp employee had posted, "We've got a bombshell today. The CEO's wife just publicly outed his mistress." The pics were sent to the corporate email. It's insane. The effect exceeded my expectations. At that moment, David called again. I looked at the flashing name on the screen, waited 5 rings, and answered leisurely. "Hello," I said in a tone one might use to comment on good weather. From the other end came David's voice, restraining fury. "Catherine, where are you? What does it matter? Do you even realize what you've done? Sending those photos to the entire company? Have you lost your mind?" I haven't lost my mind, I answered calmly. I just forwarded the photos your Ashley sent me to the people who are supposed to deal with such things. As the legal spouse of the CEO, I brought an employee's violation of professional ethics to the attention of the HR department. What's wrong with that? David was silent for 3 seconds. Catherine, we need to talk. Seriously. About what? Blowing this scandal up isn't good for anyone. Come over. Let's talk face to face. Fine, I said. I'll come over tomorrow, but I won't be talking to you. I'll be talking to your mother. I hung up and then dialed Eleanor's number. My mother-in-law picked up faster than I expected. The ring didn't even have time to complete. Catherine, you finally turned on your phone. Eleanor's voice was laced with alarm, but irritation was clearly simmering beneath it. What is going on? Why did you send that filth all over the company? What are you trying to achieve? David called you, you don't answer. I called dozens of times. Do you realize that the Grayson family has been disgraced all over New York today? I held the phone away from my ear and waited for her to finish. I knew Eleanor too well. After marrying David's father 40 years ago, she had spent her whole life caring most about the family's reputation. When old man Grayson took a mistress, Eleanor pretended not to know. Moreover, she appeared with him at all public events, hand in hand, demonstrating a perfect marriage. The status of a legal wife was etched into her very being. She tolerated it for 30 years, waited for her husband to die, and then took control of all the family assets. I knew exactly how to deal with women like her. Mom, I said in the most even voice possible. Calm down and listen to me. Eleanor snorted but stopped yelling. First of all, I didn't take those photos myself. Ashley took them and sent them to me to brag. She not only sent the photos but also insulted me. Do you want to know what she wrote? What? That David calls me a log in bed. Silence fell on the other end. Eleanor might not have felt any great love for me, but she was a woman who had survived her husband's infidelity. She understood better than anyone how poisonous such words could be. Secondly, I continued, I sent this around the company not to create a scandal, but to minimize the damage. Minimize the damage? My mother-in-law's voice shot up. Now the whole company knows about it. Rumors are spreading all over the city. And you call this minimizing the damage? Mom, answer one question, I said. Ashley is an employee of Grayson Corp. Knowing that David is married, she sleeps with him, and then sends provocative photos to his legal wife. What do you think she would have done next, if I had stayed silent? Eleanor was silent. She would have gotten completely out of hand. Today she sends photos to me, tomorrow she leaks them to the internet, and the day after she shows up with a baby bump at the door of your Greenwich estate. That's when the Grayson family would have been truly disgraced. I contained this story within the company. It's a warning to her and a warning to David. Let them know that Catherine Hayes is not to be trifled with. But why the mass email? Couldn't you have handled this quietly? Handled it quietly? I scoffed. Mom, when you quietly handled the issue with your husband's woman back in the day, did you resolve it completely? Didn't she come to you later demanding money? These words hit Eleanor like a knife to the heart. She was silent for a long time. You've been digging into my past? Her voice became heavy. I haven't been digging into your past. I just heard it from David. He told me that as a child, he saw that woman come to your house and cause a scene. I softened my tone. Mom, I am not you. You chose to endure back then because you had no other options. But I have the Hayes family. We may not be as rich as you, but we are not to be trifless with either. I have been married to David for 3 years. I have worked my ass off for your company. And after he treated me like this, I will not tolerate it. Eleanor sighed. And what do you intend to do? I want Ashley out of Grayson Corp permanently. As for David, I paused. That depends on his behavior. What behavior? He just called, screaming that you've turned the situation into a catastrophe, that the board of directors is in an uproar and is calling an emergency meeting tomorrow. Then he deserves it. Eleanor was silent again. Catherine, tell me honestly, you planned all of this in advance, from the moment you received the photos. Yes. A quiet chuckle came from the other end, whether bitter or with some other meaning. I underestimated you. Mom, I said. I am not going against the Grayson family. I just want to protect what is rightfully mine. If David realizes his mistake and gets rid of this girl cleanly, I might consider saving the marriage. If he persists, we will divorce according to the prenuptial agreement. I will take exactly what I am owed. Not a penny more, not a penny less. Eleanor thought for a moment. Come over tomorrow. We'll talk in person. Fine. I hung up and sat on the sofa. My mother-in-law's reaction was predictable. She wouldn't take my side, nor David's. She would always be on the side of the Grayson clan's interests. If I could prove that keeping me was more beneficial than indulging David, she would become my ally. Otherwise, she would cast me out without hesitation. Therefore, I needed to show her my value. I took the dossier Jack had brought and opened the pages with Ashley's social media. I carefully reread all her boastful posts. One caught my attention. 3 months ago, she had posted a photo from a boutique at Bergdorf Goodman, holding several bags from well-known brands. The caption read, "Thanks to someone for the love. Another amazing haul today." In the comments, someone asked how much she had spent. She replied with a koi emoji. "Oh, not much, just about $20,000. Her salary at Grayson Corp was $100,000. With bonuses, she made maybe $1.5 million a year. Rent for her apartment was $4,000 a month, plus daily expenses. In theory, she should be living paycheck to paycheck, if not in debt. But she had managed to blow $20,000 on a single trip to Bergdorf's. Who paid for it? The answer was obvious. I took a screenshot of this post and put it in a separate folder with the rest of the compromising material. Then I opened the electronic version of the Grayson Corp Employee Handbook. I found 2 rules. Rule 1. Employees are prohibited from using their official position or personal connections with management to obtain improper benefits. Rule 2. If an employee's behavior damages the company's reputation, the company has the right to terminate the employment contract without severance pay. Ashley's actions fell under both rules. She got into the company through her connection with David. That's Rule 1. She sent me photos, provoking a blow to the reputation. That's Rule 2. According to company policy, she could not only be fired in disgrace, but also be held liable. I opened my laptop and started drafting a document. The heading read, Statement on the Violation of Professional Ethics by Employee Ashley. The text consisted of 3 parts. First, the photos and conversation. Second, proof of her hiring through favoritism, including a copy of the evaluation sheet with David's resolution. Third, proof of receiving improper financial benefits due to her connection with the CEO, screenshots from social media, and statements of expenditures that Jack had dug up. At the end, I added, I, Catherine Hayes, as the legal spouse of the CEO of Grayson Corp., David Grayson, officially appeal to the Board of Directors and the Human Resources Department with a demand to dismiss employee Ashley in accordance with the company's charter. In the absence of a reaction within 7 business days, I reserve the right to go to court. I printed the document, signed it, dated it, and made 3 copies. 1 for the Board of Directors, 1 for the HR department, and 1 for myself. By the time I finished, it was already 3 p.m. I stood up, stretched, and walked to the window. The hotel suite offered a stunning view of half of Manhattan. The glass tower of Grayson Corp gleamed in the sun like a knife plunged into the heart of the city. Who this knife would strike tomorrow depended on David's choice. At that moment, the phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. I answered. On the other end, a trembling voice, full of rage and tears, erupted. "Catherine, you psycho! What right did you have to send my photos around? Do you have any idea what's happening to me?" I didn't let her finish. "Ashley, did you ask for my permission when you sent them to me? Since you sent them to me, they became mine, and I'll do with them as I please. This is an invasion of privacy. I'm going to file a police report." "Go ahead," I tossed out casually, leaning against the windowsill. "Go right now. We can show the investigator the whole conversation. Let the police decide. A mistress sends taunting photos to the wife. Who violated whose rights? And by the way, while you're at it, you can tell the police where you got the expensive bags and the money for a $20,000 shopping spree." Dead silence on the other end. "Ashley, let me give you some free advice," I said, enunciating every word. "From this moment on, you'd better shut your mouth and quietly wait to be fired. If you try to piss me off one more time, Ashley, this little drama won't stay internal. An anonymous source might just drop a folder on the desk of a certain Page 6 columnist. Or perhaps the IRS might receive a very detailed tip about a young PR employee living far, far beyond her means. How do you think that audit will play out for you and for everyone who has ever accepted your money? You wanted to be famous. Be careful what you wish for. Want to test me?" Ashley's voice changed. The fury evaporated. Only animal fear remained. "How? How do you know about my family?" "I know everything. So don't call me again." I hung up and immediately blocked the number. Outside, it was starting to get dark. This was the last quiet night before the storm. Tomorrow, everything would change. The next morning, I woke up at exactly 7:30. I washed up, changed, and applied my makeup unhurriedly, step by step. Today, I chose a deep green velvet dress, a black cashmere coat, and matching stilettos. My hair was gathered in a low bun, revealing my neck. In my ears were square emerald studs. The woman in the mirror looked calm and elegant, like a blade hidden in a velvet sheath. At 8 a.m., I left the plaza. As the car was leaving the underground parking, I called Jack. Jack, was it delivered? Yes. Yesterday at 10 p.m., a courier delivered the package to Grayson Corp Security. I have the receipt. At 8 a.m. today, the secretary to the board of directors will see it first. Excellent work. One more thing, Catherine. Last night, Ashley went to that same apartment to see David Grayson. She left at 3 a.m. In tears, her makeup was a mess. My people got a photo. Want me to send it? Go ahead. A few seconds later, a photo arrived. Ashley was standing by the gate, hailing a taxi, covering her mouth with her hand as if she were sobbing. She looked pathetic. I looked at the photo for a couple of seconds and put my phone away, crying. This is just the beginning. At 8:30 a.m., I parked at the gates of the Grayson family estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. David's father had bought the nearly 2.5-acre property 30 years ago. Classic European architecture, red brick, gray tile roof. Eleanor's favorite white magnolias were in the yard. It was usually quiet here, but today there were 3 cars in the driveway. David's black executive Escalade, my mother-in-law's silver Bentley Bentayga, and the black company sedan of Vance, the head of the company's legal department. Wow, they even called in the lawyers. I walked inside unhurriedly. The 3 of them were already waiting for me in the living room. Eleanor sat in the center on a leather sofa with a cup of black tea in her hands. Her face was impassive. To her left sat David. His suit was wrinkled, his eyes were red. He clearly hadn't slept all night. Seeing me, he literally jumped up from the sofa. Catherine, I didn't even glance at him. I walked to the sofa opposite Eleanor and sat down. Mom, good morning. Eleanor put down her cup and looked me over, from my face to my dress, to my shoes, and finally at the folder in my hands. You look composed, she said. I came to see you, Mom, after all. David took a step toward me and loomed over me. He's 32. In business, he was used to playing the tough executive, but right now his face looked as if he had just been slapped hard. It was a mix of anger, humiliation, and a deeply hidden panic. What are you trying to achieve? Sending those photos? Are you out of your mind? Do you know my phone has been ringing off the hook with calls from the board since this morning? I looked up at him and smiled slightly. Why are you yelling, David? I didn't take those photos. Your Ashley took them herself and sent them to me. I just helped her distribute them. Didn't she want everyone to know how close you two are? I fulfilled her dream. You should thank me. On top of that, I pulled a copy of my statement from the folder and tossed it on the coffee table. I did another good deed for you today. This statement was on the desk of the board of directors' secretary this morning. It details how Ashley got into the company, what she did there, and how much of your money she spent. Guess what the board will think? David's face turned white. He grabbed the document, flipped through a few pages, and his face contorted. When he got to the copy of the evaluation sheet with his signature, higher, his hands started to shake. How? How did you get this? What do you think? Eleanor reached out her hand, took the document from him, put on her reading glasses, and began to slowly read through it. The living room was quiet, only the rustle of pages could be heard. After 5 minutes, she closed the folder, took off her glasses, and looked at me. Is all of this true? You can check, Vance. I nodded to the lawyer. Vance adjusted his glasses. A flicker of awkwardness crossed his face. Eleanor, I already saw the originals this morning. The evaluation sheet is indeed from the department's archives. The handwriting is David's. Eleanor closed her eyes and took a deep breath. David's Adam's apple bobbed. Mom, I can explain everything. Explain what? How you falsified the hiring process in your own company for some girl. Eleanor's voice wasn't loud, but each word struck like a whip. Your father, for all his philandering, never brought women into the office, and you set her up in a cushy spot and even left written evidence. Have you completely lost your fear? David opened his mouth but couldn't find anything to say. Eleanor turned to me. Catherine, your terms. My terms are very simple, Mom. I held up 3 fingers. First, Grayson Corp immediately fires Ashley under the clause for violating corporate rules without severance pay. Second, David signs a paper admitting his guilt in the affair and waives his claim to a certain portion of our jointly acquired assets. Third, I looked at David. He will, right now, in front of you, tell us how far things went, whether she's pregnant, whether he transferred any stocks or other assets to her, whether he bought her anything with our shared family money. David's pupils narrowed sharply. Catherine, don't push it. I'm pushing it? I stood up and looked him straight in the eye. You brought your mistress into the office, let her wear my robe, lie in my bed, and send me humiliating messages. And I'm pushing it? Who among us is pushing it? We were just having fun, he shouted. Is it worth blowing up such a story over this? Having fun? I smirked. Fine. Tell me, how long were you having fun? How much money did you spend on her? Did you get her pregnant? David opened his mouth but didn't make a sound. Suddenly, Eleanor intervened. Answer her, David. Her voice had a metallic edge that David had feared more than anything since childhood. His shoulders slumped, as if he had been deflated. 3 months. No kids, didn't give her any stock. Bought her some things, spent a few million. A few million, I repeated, nodding. Did you spend your personal money or our joint funds? The look on David's face was more eloquent than any words. I see. I turned to my mother-in-law. Mom, you heard him. According to our prenuptial agreement, if one spouse is at fault for the dissolution of the marriage due to infidelity, the innocent party is entitled to 70% of the jointly acquired property. I won't demand 70, I'll take 50. Plus 3% of Grayson Corp stock. 3%? David's head snapped up. Are you insane? 3% of Grayson Corp stock was worth about $50 million. Eleanor remained silent, just looking at me. Mom, I added, I don't want control. I just want the dividends, and I will commit not to sell them to a third party as long as David remains CEO. It's just a guarantee. After all, what I've brought to the company in these 3 years is worth far more than $50 million. Eleanor was silent for a long time. So you've decided on a divorce? That depends on him. David. Eleanor turned her heavy gaze on her son. Are you going to break up with her? I'll break up with her. Of course I'll break up with her. David clung to this like a life raft. I'll kick her out of the company today. Good, I nodded. We'll see. But be warned, if I find out you're in contact with her, or if you get a new slut, I won't be making terms anymore. I'll just make it so that Grayson Corp gets a new CEO. David turned pale with rage, but nodded. Eleanor stood up and walked over to me. Catherine, you turned out to be tougher than I thought. Life made me this way, Mom. No, my mother-in-law shook her head. You weren't forced. You were just waiting for a chance. And those 3 photos were the knife you were waiting for. I remained silent. Eleanor turned to her son. And you are going to the office right now and processing her dismissal, so that I see the document stating she has left the company by today. Understood? I'm going. David grabbed his coat and almost ran out of the living room. Eleanor sat back down on the sofa and took a sip of tea. Sit down, Catherine. I sat. David was spoiled by his father since childhood. When the old man started with that woman, David was only 10. He grew up watching his father cheat on me and never understood how a husband should behave. I thought that by marrying you, he would settle down, but he followed in his father's footsteps. She looked at me. You made a very harsh move, but the right one. David needed to be put in his place. I couldn't. His father couldn't. The board of directors couldn't. But you could. Mom, I'm not trying to put him in his place. I just don't want to be a doormat. Exactly. Eleanor smiled faintly. I tolerated it my whole life, but I never learned those words. You are stronger than me. She pulled a thick envelope from under the table and handed it to me. This is for you. Not because you were wronged, but because you proved that someone is finally capable of teaching my wayward son a lesson. I took the envelope but didn't open it, just clutched it in my hand. Thank you, Mom. Don't mention it. Eleanor stood up. You'll stay here tonight. Don't go back to the hotel. This is your home, and no one will kick you out. With that, she went up to the 2nd floor. I was left alone in the living room. Outside, the magnolia branches swayed in the wind, and on the other side of the city, Ashley was living through the longest day of her life. After leaving the estate, David didn't go straight to the office. He got on the highway and drove like a madman, 80, 90, 100 miles per hour. The black Escalade darted through traffic like a wounded animal. People honked at him, but he paid no attention, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. His head was a mess. Catherine's gaze was burned into his mind, not angry, but absolutely icy, the look one gives an insect. She sat there in that deep green velvet dress, with her perfect hairstyle, and enunciated every word like a pre-rehearsed script. She hadn't improvised. She had been building this plan from the very second she received the photos. The private investigator, the evaluation sheet, the bank statements, the statement to the board. You don't gather that in one day. She hadn't cried, hadn't thrown a tantrum, hadn't asked questions. She had coldly gathered the evidence and, at the most opportune moment, laid it all on the table. David suddenly felt cold. He had been married to Catherine for 3 years and thought he knew her well. The daughter of the wealthy Hayes family, a prestigious diploma, excellent taste, perfect manners. He thought she was just a convenient high society wife and a good business associate, but he could never have imagined what a mind she had. The prenuptial agreement she had made him sign it 3 years ago. He had laughed then, saying it was a bad omen, but she had just smiled and said it was just in case. Now he understood. The very moment he put his signature on it, he had already fallen into her trap. The phone rang, displaying Ashley's name. He hesitated for 3 seconds, then answered. David. Ashley's voice was shrill, like styrofoam scraping on glass. Where are you? Everyone in the office is laughing at me, whispering behind my back. That old hag Helen told the whole department she's firing me. Get here, quick. David winced. Where are you now? In the office. Hiding in the bathroom. There are people everywhere. I'm afraid to come out. When are you coming? You promised to protect me. There were tears in her voice, but for some reason, it only enraged David. 3 months ago, it had touched him. Back then, she had accidentally spilled coffee on him, looked at him with wide, frightened eyes, and spoken in a thin, timid voice, like a scared rabbit. For some reason, he hadn't gotten angry then. Instead, he had calmed her down. And then it all started. Ashley was the complete opposite of Catherine. Catherine was too strong, so strong that next to her, he always felt like he was in second place. When she discussed company mergers, her eyes lit up. She analyzed financial reports faster than he did. Even in bed, she was too reserved, always in control. With her, he felt not like a husband, but a business project. But Ashley was different. She was capricious, looked up at him with adoring eyes, and constantly repeated, David, you're so amazing! How do you know everything? I love you so much. It was as sweet as honey. He had felt like a man. But now the honey had turned to poison. Listen to me carefully, David growled, slowing down. Right now, you pack your things and leave through the back entrance. I'll tell HR to process your termination. Don't take anything, just go. I'll transfer your salary to you. Silence hung on the other end. What did you say? Ashley's voice screeched, all pretense of crying gone. You're kicking me out? By what right? You're the one who hired me here. You said you loved me. It was you, Ashley, David roared. You think I want this? When you sent Catherine those photos, were you using your head at all? I just freaked out that you kept ditching me for her. I was hurt. David laughed coldly. You were hurt? Did I not give you enough? Everything you're wearing was bought with my money. I asked you to keep a low profile. Why the hell did you go after Catherine? Do you have any idea who you've messed with? Just your wife. What's so special about her? David closed his eyes. Idiot. An absolute idiot. Ashley, listen up, he gritted out. You're out of Grayson Corp today. I will transfer $50,000 to your account. As of today, it's over between us. Don't call me, don't look for me, and don't you dare even get near Catherine. 50,000? Do you take me for a beggar? Ashley's voice broke. All her fake sweetness vanished, revealing her greedy core. I lost my job because of you. My reputation is ruined, and you want to buy me off with 50 grand? I'll go to the press and tell them everything about you. A vein throbbed in David's temple. How much do you want? 500,000, and not a penny less. You're insane. You're the one who's insane. You think 50,000 will shut me up? I have dirt on you. Your signature on my hiring documents and receipts for everything you bought me. If you don't give me the money, I'll leak everything. Let everyone know who the CEO of Grayson Corp really is. David's fingers dug into the steering wheel. He suddenly remembered Catherine's words from the morning. If I find out you're in contact with her, I won't be making terms anymore. Catherine had the statement for the board. If Ashley leaked this to the press, Catherine would play her trump cards, and then he would be torn apart by everyone. Shareholders, journalists, competitors. 500,000. I'll transfer it tomorrow, he said through clenched teeth. But you will sign a non-disclosure agreement and disappear forever. Money first, we'll talk tomorrow. Ashley hung up. David threw the phone onto the passenger seat with all his might. He was shaking, not with rage, but with fear. He wasn't afraid of Ashley. He was afraid of Catherine. He was afraid of the woman in the velvet dress who looked at him like an insect and dictated terms. She had calculated everything, even that Ashley would start blackmailing him. David pulled over to the side of the road, covered his face with his hands, and let out a low groan. And on the other side of the city, Ashley sat on the floor of a women's restroom on the 24th floor of the Grayson Tower, hugging her knees and trembling all over. She had tried to act tough in her conversation with David, but in reality, her heart was pounding with terror. She wasn't fearless. She was just masking her panic with aggression. Outside the restroom door, she could hear footsteps. Someone would come in to touch up their lipstick. Someone would whisper, "Did you see that email this morning?" Of course I saw it. God, are those really her photos? How did she dare? I always knew there was something rotten behind her St. Ashley act. But to send photos like that to the CEO's wife, that's suicide? And our CEO's wife is a Hayes. You don't mess with them. Well, our little princess is done for. Serves her right, acting like a queen around here. Ashley buried her face in her knees, digging her nails into her palms until they bled. She wanted to jump out and tear at their hair, but she didn't dare, because they were right. She had sent those photos, and she had really thought she had won. That morning, with David sleeping at her place, she had put on Catherine's robe and felt a sense of superiority over that arrogant wife. She took 3 photos and sent them. She expected the wife to have a meltdown, for them to get divorced, and for her to move into that Greenwich estate. And now, Catherine had simply sent it to everyone. 127 employees, including the board of directors and HR. When she came to the office that morning, everyone stared at her like she was a leper. Helen had called her in, printed out the email, and thrown it on the desk. Take a look. She had never been so scared in her life. Helen's face was as cold as steel. Ashley, the order from HR will come down after lunch. If you resign, you can leave quietly. If it's for cause, you'll never find another job in this industry. She cried and begged Helen for a chance. But Helen just shook her head and said a phrase that sent a chill down her spine. It's not up to me. It's an order from the CEO's wife. And your David won't save you. And David didn't save her. He had just offered her $50,000. For 3 months of her life, she got $50,000. Ashley bit her lip, tears smearing her makeup. She couldn't accept it. She had clawed her way out of her provincial hole, changed her name, learned to dress, copied the city girls, thought she had the world by the tail, and in the end, she was left with nothing. Her phone rang again. The screen read Pat. She answered, and her brother's hysterical voice came through the line. Jenny, what the hell? Someone sent your photos right to the market. They're plastered all over Mom and Dad's stalls. It's you in bed with some guy. The whole market is buzzing, saying you became a whore in the city. Mom fainted. The phone fell from her hands. The screen cracked on the tile, but she didn't even try to pick it up. She sank to the floor, as if all her bones had been removed. She remembered Catherine's words. The next batch of photos will go to the farmer's market in your hometown. She had thought Catherine was just bluffing, but she hadn't been joking. Ashley covered her face with her hands and screamed. She didn't remember how she left the restroom. She only remembered that when she pushed the door open, people were standing in the hallway, colleagues from her department, gawkers from other floors, and 2 security guards in uniform. Everyone was staring at her. The silence was worse than any insult. Ashley, with her head down, walked to her desk. The sound of her heels echoed on the marble floor. A cardboard box was already on her desk. Helen stood nearby, arms crossed, along with a woman in a gray suit, the deputy director of HR. Ashley, the HR woman, said loudly, for everyone to hear. In accordance with Grayson Corp's Code of Corporate Ethics, for using personal connections for personal gain and causing grievous reputational damage to the company, you are terminated for cause. You have 30 minutes to pack your things. Security will escort you to the exit. Ashley opened her mouth, but her throat was dry. Whispers started. Fired for cause. Serves her right. Look at her. All her makeup is running. What a mess. Her hands were shaking. She reached for her mug, but her fingers slipped. The mug fell and shattered. Splashes of water hit one of her colleagues' shoes. Hey, what are you doing? The colleague jumped back in disgust. Ashley wanted to apologize, but the colleague had already turned away. What a pig. She knelt to pick up the pieces. A shard of glass cut her finger, and blood welled up, but she felt no pain. The pain of her crushed ego was far worse. She collected her meager belongings, a broken mug, a withered plant, a couple of books she had never opened, a small mirror. As she placed them in the box, she felt as if pieces of her life were being torn away. These things were worthless, but they were proof that she had been a part of this world. Now, this world was throwing her out like trash. She picked up the box. Helen came closer. Your pass. Ashley took the ID card from around her neck. It had her photo, taken on her first day of work. Smiling, full of hope. The HR woman handed her papers. Sign for your termination. With a trembling hand, Ashley scrawled her signature. No one said a word of farewell. She walked to the elevator, escorted by security. The 2-minute journey felt like 2 years. People peeked out of every office, filming on their phones, whispering. Who's going to hire her now with that on her record? She heard someone say. As the elevator doors were closing, someone called her name. It was Sarah, a junior employee she barely spoke to. Sarah held out the phone stand she had forgotten. Here. You forgot this. Thanks, Ashley managed to whisper. It was the first person all day who had spoken to her without malice. Sarah sighed and just said, hang in there. The doors closed. The numbers on the display counted down. 24, 23, 22. With each floor, she moved further away from the world she had so desperately tried to fit into. The elevator reached the ground floor. Ashley walked towards the exit, hoping to disappear as quickly as possible. But in the main lobby, by the revolving doors, stood 3 people. 2 adults and a young man. Ashley froze. It was her mother, Mary, her father, John, and her brother, Pat, dressed in cheap jackets, looking like they had just gotten off a bus. Her mother's eyes were swollen from crying, her father's face was purple with rage, and in his hand, he clutched that very photo. Pat stood there with a look of disgust. Jenny. Her mother rushed to her and grabbed her arm. What's going on? What are these photos? Everyone at the market is saying you're in the city. Tell me it's not true. Ashley couldn't force out a single word. John shoved the crumpled photo in her face. What's there to say? The photo was hanging right on my stall. I've been selling potatoes for 20 years. I could look people straight in the eye. And because of you, you slut, I was shamed in front of the whole market today. The photograph fell to the floor. In it, Ashley was lying in David's bed, flashing a peace sign at the camera. People in the lobby were stopping and starting to stare. Ashley bent down to pick up the photo, but Pat stepped on it with his sneaker. Don't touch it. You're a disgrace. I was bragging to my buddies that my sister was a big shot at Grayson Corp, and it turns out you got here by sleeping with the boss. How am I supposed to look my friends in the eye now? Tears finally streamed from Ashley's eyes. Tears of absolute, total despair. Her mother was sobbing. Her father was yelling. Her brother looked at her with disgust. A crowd of onlookers with phones had gathered around them. Mom, Dad, let's go. She tried to lead them away. But Mary pulled her hand back. Don't touch me. Tell me, did you really sleep with another woman's husband? Ashley closed her eyes. Yes. A sharp slap stung her cheek. I sent you to college to become a prostitute? Your father almost had a heart attack because of you. And your brother's getting married soon. Who will marry into a family like this? Her father grabbed her arm. Get in the car. We're going home. Enough of this disgrace. She resisted. The box fell from her hands, the mirror shattered. The soil from the plant spilled onto the polished marble of the lobby. Her life, her dreams, everything was trampled right here. Her father dragged her towards the exit. She looked back at the Grayson Corp skyscraper. The sun glinted off the glass. 3 months ago, she had walked in here and decided that Jenny was dead. Now there was only Ashley. 3 months later, she was being thrown out. Her father shoved her into a beat-up old van. She remembered Catherine's words. I know everything. That woman really did know everything. She knew what Ashley feared most, and had made those fears a reality. The van pulled onto the highway, heading towards their small town. Ashley closed her eyes. She had lost completely. David sat in his office all evening. He didn't turn on the lights. The blinds were drawn. The ashtray was overflowing with cigarette butts. The phone rang incessantly, but he didn't answer. The corporate networks were on fire. Someone had leaked a video to the internet of Ashley's father dragging her out of the lobby. The scandal was being discussed in professional circles. The CEO of Grayson Corp had fired his mistress after a public shaming by his wife. In the evening, Vance, the head of the legal department, came in. David. His face was grim. An emergency meeting of the board of directors has been scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. The agenda: your improper interference in employee hiring, misappropriation of corporate funds, and the question of your temporary suspension from your position. David snapped his head up. Suspension? Who initiated it? Victor Sterling. He's teamed up with 3 independent directors. He has a copy of Catherine's statement and the bank statements for the $20,000 you spent at Bergdorf's. David clenched his fists. He thought he had hidden those expenses under the guise of entertainment costs. Catherine had dug up everything. One more thing, the lawyer added. The journalists are already calling. If the board makes a decision tomorrow, it will be in the papers. David walked to the window. The city skyline was lit up, but for him, this empire was crumbling. Vance, what? What would my father have done? You worked with him. Your father, the lawyer hesitated, also had his indiscretions. But he quietly sent the women away and apologized to his wife. He never let it get to the board of directors. David pressed his forehead against the glass. What an idiot I am. Catherine calculated everything. She didn't just want a divorce. She wanted to show me she could destroy me with a snap of her fingers. What will you do at the meeting? David took a document from his drawer. I will admit my guilt and transfer 2% of my shares to Catherine, voluntarily. The lawyer looked at the paper. That's $50 million. I need to show the board I'm willing to pay for my mistakes, and show Catherine that I've learned my lesson. I need her to not finish me off completely. The next day, the cars of the directors gathered at the Grayson Corp Tower. The last to arrive was a cherry-red executive sedan. Catherine stepped out. A perfect ivory suit, a flower-shaped brooch, red lipstick. She walked like a queen. In the boardroom on the 24th floor, 12 people had gathered. David sat at the head of the table, disheveled, with dark circles under his eyes. Eleanor sat next to him, running her fingers over her pearl necklace. Across from them sat Victor Sterling, an ambitious old man who dreamed of seizing power. Catherine entered and sat next to her mother-in-law. Victor Sterling immediately went on the offensive. The company's reputation has been undermined. We demand an explanation. David stood up and faced the board. Hiring Ashley was my mistake. The money spent on her was my fault. I take full responsibility. As compensation, I am transferring 2% of my shares to my wife. A murmur went through the room. Victor Sterling frowned. Transferring shares to your wife is a personal matter. What does it have to do with the company? It has everything to do with it, Catherine said loudly, laying documents on the table. Lawyers have confirmed that David's spending was a misappropriation of jointly acquired assets. I could have sued him and taken everything, but I didn't come for money. I came for justice. She placed a draft of a divorce settlement on the table. It states, if David ever strays again, I get 70% of the assets and 5% of the company's stock. This is my guarantee, Victor Sterling scoffed. Catherine, your family squabbles are not for the board of directors. You are mistaken, she retorted. The mistress was your employee. The money was spent from company-related accounts. This directly concerns the company. Eleanor dropped her hand from her pearls and said sharply, Catherine is right. David will be punished. Victor, I support your proposal for suspension. David is suspended from his position as CEO for 1 month, forfeits his annual bonus, and will reimburse all expenses. The transfer of shares is his penance. The matter is closed. The meeting is adjourned. No one dared to argue with the main shareholder. When everyone had left, only David, Catherine, and his mother remained in the room. Catherine, David said hoarsely. In this month, I will get every penny back from Ashley and sue her for extortion. And in a month, I will come back and prove that I am worthy of you. Catherine remained silent. Eleanor took Catherine's arm. Let's go. In the elevator, Eleanor looked at her daughter-in-law. You really would have gone through with the divorce. If he doesn't change, I will. Harsh. But you did well. The Grayson family is in your debt. A week later, Grayson Corp's stock fell by 4%. Victor Sterling hinted at a management crisis through the press. Victor's son, Ian, bragged in bars that they would soon take over the company. Ashley, trapped at home in her small town, out of desperation, posted a message online with hints of leaking company trade secrets. Her brother, Pat, in a misguided attempt to be a hero, started posting furious, rambling videos on TikTok, threatening David Grayson and trying to expose the truth. His posts, full of spelling errors and empty threats, only made the family look more pathetic and drew even more online ridicule. But Catherine wasn't sleeping. At the next board meeting, using the 4% of shares from her own Hayes family, she joined the board as an independent director. Her first decision was to initiate an internal investigation into the information leaks. She laid on the table documents proving that Victor Sterling's son's firm had been illegally receiving million-dollar contracts from Grayson Corp. Victor Sterling was instantly deflated. Waiting for Catherine outside the building was David, with white roses. He had lost weight, looked tired, but his eyes were clear. "I've been reading my father's journals," he said quietly. "I realized I became the same kind of scumbag he was. I was afraid of your strength, Catherine, and I sought out a stupid girl to feel like a man. I was a complete coward. I'm not asking for forgiveness, just know that I've realized everything." Catherine looked at him. "You know what infuriated me the most? That robe. It was an exclusive piece from a top American designer. I bought it for myself, but David, it was in our home, in our sanctuary. And you let that trash roll around in it. I'm sorry. I don't need your apologies. Just remember this lesson forever." That evening, they had dinner with Eleanor at the Greenwich estate. The mother-in-law opened a vintage wine. Jack sent Catherine a message. "Ashley has been arrested by the police for disclosing trade secrets. She's facing real prison time. Her brother is also being interrogated. Their parents are facing foreclosure on their home." Catherine turned her phone face down. David raised his glass. "To you, Catherine." She silently clinked her glass with his. Outside, New York City glowed. A month ago, she was just a cheated-on wife. Today, she was an independent director controlling the fate of a massive corporation. She had survived this meat grinder and emerged victorious. And now, no one would ever dare call Catherine Hayes weak.